Okay, great. So today we're going to talk about boundary setting and self-advocacy. Two very important things that we can establish for ourselves that can help us in a multitude of ways, not just with school and work, but with um, in our interpersonal lives and career, and it's very multifaceted. So if you don't know who I am, I'm Dan Coco. I am the coordinator for student engagement, and I'm on the Dundalk campus. This is our first leadership lunch of the semester, so let's get started. All right, so today we're going to start off with boundary setting. What is self-advocacy? What is self-determination? And then how we can put all these different things into a kind of cohesive roadmap, and then some closing slash question and answer. All right, so boundary setting. Um, what if you guys could put in the chat, what do you think of when you think of healthy boundaries? Um, because essentially, setting healthy boundaries is a way of establishing what you are okay with and not okay with. It doesn't always have to be a negative thing. Uh, it could be positive, um, and pretty much whatever you're comfortable with. Um, and it's basically a, a set of rules that you have with yourself and with other people, um, that lets others know and lets yourself know how you want to be treated and how you treat others, essentially. So Elijah says, saying no, incredibly useful. Um, it's as they say, no is a complete sentence, right? There is no need for justification always. Just saying no is completely okay, right? What, and sometimes we might think that we might need to be in a situation where we do need, or we just feel internally that we always have to explain ourselves or say anything, but it's perfectly okay just to say no. Anybody else? You guys can just write it in the chat. So yeah, saying no, setting limits in different relationships and how far you're gonna go. Definitely. Um, no is very powerful to stop something you don't feel comfortable with. Definitely. Thank you guys for responding. And so let's delve in to the types of boundaries that there are, because when you think about it, it can really affect different parts of your life, both internally and externally, right? Um, so physical boundaries, and that could include personal touch, that could be or personal space. Some people are very big huggers and other people are not. And so if someone comes in for like a hug, you can be like, hey, I'm not, you know, not big on hugs, and that's totally okay. Privacy, if someone's asking you a ton of questions, um, it's okay to set those walls up. Emotional, so it's respecting others' feelings, um, taking responsibility for your own emotions, and conversely, not feeling obligated or responsible for how other people feel, right? Because I know for some people, we feel this sort of um, obligation to make sure everyone around us is okay, right? Make sure everyone around us is okay, if even if that means we're neglecting our own needs. Um, But a very good um, sort of analogy is, in order to help other people best, it's equally as important, if not more important, to help yourself first. So the analogy is, um, if you're in like a plane, and it's in a hairy situation, you're supposed to put your mask on first before you help other people, right? And I like to see that as a um, kind of like a guideline for how I approach social situations. Like if I'm doing okay, then I know I can, you know, give myself fully and also take in other people's ideas, expectations, and all of that, because I feel like full within myself and I have those emotional boundaries, right? Intellectual. So it's having different respect for everybody around you and the right to change your mind, right? We're not like, we're ever evolving, very fluid people, and growth is, it's inevitable with everybody. It's not it's not linear like a lot of things, and it's okay to change your mind. You're not set into these hard and fast opinions, and it's okay to take in outside information, even if that means that someone is challenging you, right? And not make it personal, if that makes sense. um, and having disagreements without personal attacks. I'm sure we've all been in disagreements or discussions about various things where we hit a nerve with some people, and or maybe they hit a nerve with us, and then we come back with like a very personal thing that has nothing to do with what we're talking about, right? It's important to keep an open mind, but also kind of have these boundaries set in place. Time. So a work-life balance is incredibly important. um, your commitment limit. Let's say I'm in six, let's say I'm in 10 clubs. It's hard to devote a substantial amount of effort equally to all of these clubs or commitments or jobs, or could be anything, you know. It's good to know yourself and know what you can handle, but also still try to have these goals where you're like kind of pushing yourself, but also take time for your own self-care, right? Because I know I've been in situations where I had a million things going on and it was just like absolute pandemonium, and I was doing everything, but at the end of the day I was just like so exhausted. um and it leads to burnout quite quick, right? So it's good to take time for yourself. Um, a material boundary, so that could be like loan of possessions, like, hey, can I borrow your charger? Okay, but use it while you're with me, or give it back to me tomorrow, something like that, where you have like a kind of like hard and fast, like not like deadline, but like time that you're going to get something back, rather than it being vague and ambiguous of like, oh, I gave it to them. I feel kind of awkward asking for it back, even though I like they are borrowing it from me, right? Shared spaces and personal property. So that kind of all lumps in together. Um, digital boundaries are incredibly important in this day and age, where we think about like digital footprint and our online privacy and our online interactions. And digital etiquette, which, if you don't know what etiquette is, it's pretty much how we conduct ourselves online, right? Um, because what we say and do online does matter. There is record of it. So it's kind of, you know, yeah. Relationship boundaries. Um, so having a respect for your partner's individuality, right? Letting people be themselves without trying to change them. Um, Having good conflict resolution, you kind of want to hammer that out early on so that if you do get to like a fever point in a relationship, it doesn't crumble instantaneously because you guys don't agree on it, and emotional support. Next, we have spiritual, which is your respect for your beliefs, other people's beliefs, spiritual discussions, without making it personal, without on both sides, keeping it cordial, and respecting people's spiritual journeys. There's a lot of people who are on spiritual journeys and they don't have it all figured out, and that's completely okay. And just respecting that, right? Work, this kind of ties in with time. Your work hours, having professional relationships, keeping things professional in every work setting. And that looks different for every workspace, right? Because if you work, construction versus, if you work in banking, it's going to look a little different, right? So it's all very relative. Financial, having the wherewithal to know what you're spending and if you're being frivolous with it, if you're being very frugal, and being able to kind of set like boundaries for yourself that to keep yourself in check. Financial independence and lending money. Social boundaries, and that can mean social energy, um, which pretty much is, I know for some people who might be more introverted or just, you know, if you go to an event, it's okay to leave early so that you have time for yourself afterwards. Because I know for myself, if I go out for something, I'm going to need time to recharge afterwards, right? Um, Personal space and then respectful conversations, right? There will be times where you'll have, conversations with people where it kind of like leans into like the gray area. If this is like, is this okay to talk about? If this is not okay to talk about? And if you're not comfortable with something, it's perfectly fine to say that you're not, right? Because you're letting the other person know, and you're also letting yourself know that I'm not okay with talking about this. Could be anything, right? But let's kind of deter talking about this in the future because it might be a sore subject, or it might bring up some trauma that we're still working through, or whatever it could be, right? And then personal, which kind of ties into social, emotional limits, uh, decision making, and self care. And as we work through this, I'm going to emphasize, especially later on, how important, if you're just starting to make boundaries, if you want to get better at it, how important self care is within all of this, because it's incredibly important to feel like mindful and at ease and kind of grounded, um, because you don't want to make rash decisions if you're not in the right frame of mind, and you will be more likely to be like a fuller person, being able to make better boundaries and being your own self advocate if you are implementing these. Could be daily, could be weekly, could be hourly forms of self care, whatever that looks like to you. I actually did one leadership lunch last year um, on self care, so I think that's on our YouTube channel if you guys want to check that out. But yeah, moving on. This is, as I said, the importance of boundaries. You know, as you go through life and as you grow as a person, as you grow as a student, as a member of the workforce, as a parent, as a partner, as a anything, setting up boundaries will make you feel a better form of self-esteem and self-respect. Um, and it's definitely okay to share whatever personal information that you want gradually, or you can do it all at once. It's 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 up to you, and these are just suggestions, but in a mutually sharing and trusting place, right? And as we're able to do this, we can protect ourselves physically, emotionally from, unwanted questions, unwanted conversations that we might feel uncomfortable about. Um, and this is really where responsibility and power are shared. Because if you're in an organization, if you're in a class, or if you're, you know, doing whatever, working with people, being around people who share this sense of, kind of self grounding, you are able to be kind of in this community of people who know themselves and are able to respect your boundaries, and then conversely, going the other way, you respect their boundaries, right? Being assertive is certainly a task for a lot of people, myself included. Um, but it's okay. Like, yes and no are completely perfect sentences, right? They're perfectly valid, perfectly applicable to many situations. And on the flip side of that, it's okay if other people say that to you, right? Because if you ask someone something and they just say no, okay, leave it at that, right? Unless the situation requires more information. But um, as we go through this, it can be a little bit of a tricky thing to kind of separate your needs and your thoughts and your expectations from others, right? So it's good to have expectations for other people, but you don't want them to be unrealistic, or you don't want to be kind of upset if they don't reach that point, because we have to remember that everybody is living for the first time, and everybody is on this journey together. They're on their own path. Some people might not be as far along on it as you, which is perfectly fine. Um, you just have to respect everybody's journey, and that our boundaries and our differences and our needs are different from other people, right? And that's kind of the beautiful thing about this, about being around a bunch of different types of people, is that we are all each so unique, right? Um, and it helps you make healthy choices and take responsibility for yourself. So, some verbalization, right? When we're setting these boundaries, what are they going to sound like? You know, it can be difficult at first. You're going to want to start small. Um, Firstly, it's not my responsibility to make sure others are responsible, right? Let's say you get into a car with someone who's been drinking. That's not a good decision from you, and it's not a good decision from them. And you perfectly fine saying, no, I'll call an Uber. No, I'll call someone to pick me up, or, I'll just wait, you know, because we might trust these people, but it's like we can't put our lives in other people's hands. Um, and it's not our job to rescue people from whatever is going on, right, in their lives. So if you have a friend who's going through a really emotional time, we might underestimate how that makes us feel, right? Because you want to be there for them, you want to help them out as best as you can, but in a sense, we are we're there in a limited capacity, right? As much as we want to help people, some of the work has to be done by themselves, right? And it's perfectly okay if other people get angry because they might not see your point of view, and that's fine. It's okay to say no. Um, I have the right to feel my feelings, no matter what anyone else feels about my feelings. Anything you feel, anything you go through is completely valid. It's completely okay to feel a certain way because that's your body's response to it, right? That's seeing something or hearing something or watching something is if it struck a chord with you, if you watched a movie and you cried, that's okay, right? You know, that's just an example, but yeah. Um, Another one is it's it's okay to spend time alone without explaining myself, and that really is can be kind of difficult for people. But for other people, it might be very easy, right? Um, but it's incredibly crucial to kind of sit with yourself because we might spend all of our time completely surrounded by people all the time. We might have a big house with a big family, and you know, and we're at school around classmates, and we go to work and we're around people. But it's nice to just have some alone time and check in with yourself and say no to something if you don't want to go, right? You don't have to have an a big explanation for why you don't want to go to something, or be a part of, this one thing. It's okay to just kind of decompress and sit with yourself and be okay with that. And this last one I really like. Um, I do not need permission to be who I am, think what I think, nor to honor me. Um, like I said earlier, we are all very different people, and some of us are more similar than others, and some of us are more different than others. But that's the amazing thing, right? We have these unique qualities about ourselves, and the way that we feel, the way that we react to things, the way that we think is is completely okay, right? It's You don't have to explain yourself to anybody. You don't have to feel bad for being yourself. You don't have to put on airs or wear a mask around people, a figurative mask, just to feel uh, included. And if you feel the need to do that, then maybe there should be some time for yourself where you're like, why do I feel like I need to do this? If I did show them the real me, maybe they would like that, right? So in a sense, it's kind of robbing people of actually getting to know the true you, right? Um, so yeah, let's go. Okay, let's get into self-advocacy. So firstly, what do you guys think when you think of an advocate? You guys can just put it in the chat. I know it's already up here, but I want to hear what your guys' definition of an advocate is. A supporter, definitely.
I someone to speak for the rights of others and others for the community.
Yeah, definitely, Benedict. A mentor figure, someone with your best interests at heart. Yeah, all great answers. So yeah, you guys nailed the nail on its head, whatever that saying is. It's someone, yeah, someone who represents another. Yeah, someone who listens well, helps people be fuller versions of themselves and speak up for them. Um, I just realized I wrote the same thing twice. But yeah, you guys nailed it. But what is a self-advocate? Self-advocate is someone who speaks up for themselves, right? And is able to, doesn't always have to be succinctly, but someone who is able to clearly express what their wants and hit the nail on the coffin. Yeah. To completely express what their wants and needs and desires and dreams and aspirations are. And it's also someone who kind of stands by what decisions they make, right? Someone who doesn't flip flop, someone who takes responsibility and takes charge for the things that they believe, whether it's about themselves or whether it's about other things. It's just someone who you're advocating for yourself, which is what a self advocate is. It's pretty self explanatory. Self determination. So, self determination, what I like to think it as, is someone who is able to kind of take their life into their own hands, right? Rather than being guided by some outside principle or outside ideas that maybe we don't want, right? Maybe we're feeling societal pressure or familial pressure or peer pressure from something to be, and to be something that we might not align ourselves with, right? Um, and they take responsibility for their choices. So self advocacy and self determination are like this. For those on audio, I'm just twisting my fingers. Um, they are people who are able to be themselves and advocate for themselves and take life by the reins, by the horns, um, and really advocate for themselves. Really, what I like to think of it as is really commit to themselves, right? Because if we're in college, if we're in school, if we're at a job or anything else, we want to give it our all because that's what we're here for. We're here to give it 100%, and or it doesn't just have to apply to jobs and in work in school, but it applies to everything else, right? It applies to relationships. It applies to parenting. It applies to anything, right? It's a commitment approach. Yeah, definitely, Romy. And it essentially means having the freedom, having the capability to be yourself at all times, or also when you're able to, right? Because sometimes we're in situations where we have to kind of tone it down a little bit. Like I don't like the same around my friends that I do around, coworkers. And so, anyways, but like being in charge of the decisions that affect you. So if you really want to go to school for something, then you should go to school for it, right? Provided you can have like the financial, backing and all of that to kind of, and if I wanted to go to art school, I would, want to further my passion for film or whatever, you know, and it's being able to choose what you want to do because ultimately it's our own lives, right? We have ourselves, at the end of the day, we have ourselves. We have people around us, but they're not responsible for us and we're not responsible for them, right? So it's a very interesting approach to life where you're like, I'm in charge, right? Of me. So you are in control, you have the final say over things, and you make your own choices. Um, it means freedom, it means control, it means choice, it means responsibility, it means the the possibilities are endless, right? If you wanted to take up pottery, then do it, right? Like there's no one stopping you. And if you're thinking like, oh, like am I I might get made fun of, or I might get, people might not like it, or, oh, I don't have any other friends who do it. That's completely okay. Then you can be the first friend to do it, and then maybe other people around you will want to do it, stuff like that. Or if you wanted to knit or crochet or go hiking or go running, it could be anything. And so now we can kind of sandwich it all together, put it into action, because self-advocacy in general, self-determination in general takes courage. It can be terrifying to take that first step to I don't want to say bettering your life, but to take the step in the right direction, right? Where you're in control of your life, right? Because you might be comfortable with the status quo and with, content with your life, but is there anything different that's going to happen in your life, or if you want to get out of a different situation, that's okay. You might disagree with others, you might talk about something that is very private and personal, um, and you will definitely be taking a risk. Putting up boundaries is just certainly taking a risk, um, because you're not sure if other people or how other people are going to react to it, and that isn't something you should consider when you're creating those boundaries, right? Your boundaries are your own for a reason, and that's what you're comfortable with, right? And you might feel that people will judge you, right? Like that's like it doesn't matter. Like I know I say it doesn't matter, but it matters a little bit to people. But like others' opinions, they just they shouldn't hold you back because of what they think or what you think they think you want, if that tracks. um yeah, it takes a lot of practice, and it's gonna be difficult, but it's gonna be great. It's gonna be And you're gonna find yourself like, wow, I was a completely different person last year or 3 months ago or 6 weeks ago, however long it is. And you'll become more confident, you'll be more sure of yourself, people will be more open to speaking up and being more vulnerable with each other. It opens the door to a plethora um, of different social interactions, of different relationships, whether it's a mentor, um, whether it's like like an actual relationship, or a job. It could be anything, right? And you're able, once you know yourself, you kind of know how you're going to react to things. So you're able to think on your feet better, right? You can pick up social cues. You're like, oh, okay, this is how I react to this. Maybe that's why this person is reacting this way to this situation, right? So you get to you. I've said this before, but not in this one. When you get to know yourself, you get to know other people really well, right? It might sound cheesy, but like it's really the truth, right? Because if you're not like a full person, it, you can't. And if you're, if it's difficult to open up, friendships, relationships, jobs and everything it's like a two-way street, right? So if you're vulnerable, the other person might be more incentivized to be vulnerable. And it's kind of like this, I don't like to think of it as like a tug of war, but it's very fluid. It goes like back and forth and kind of like a pendulum. And you get to experience more of other people and get into deeper conversations, and get like deeper, more meaningful friends. um yeah, so this is kind of a roadmap to setting up personal boundaries. So firstly, you want to check in with yourself and say, okay, what is the boundary that I want to set? And once you know that, first step's done, right? Check that off the list. And secondly, you want to communicate with whoever you're trying to set this boundary with. Could be your mother, could be your brother, could be a boss, it could be a friend, it could be someone you just met. But you need to say what you need, right? And it's good to stay simple and don't over explain yourself, because when you start over explaining yourself, you could trip yourself up and, kind of muddy the waters a little bit. And it gets to be a little bit of vague of like what you're trying to say sometimes. And set consequences. And this isn't like you're going to be reprimanded or anything, but you need to say why something in particular is important. Why is this important to me? Um, and be consistent. It's going to start small, but once you start setting these, you're able to enforce these boundaries firmly and fairly without any sort of negative emotion attached to it, because it just is, right? It's not good or bad. It just is, right? And there will be times, or it can be times, where it could get emotional, especially if you're talking about a certain subject. But it's okay. We're not perfect. We're doing our best, right? We're trying to be fuller people, but it takes time. Growth takes time, right? And once you start doing this, it gets should it does get easier the more you do it, right? Okay. Okay. And now this is more of like a concrete way. So choose an effective method, whether it's in person, over text, over email, over Telegram. It could be anything, and start small. Mention things like breadcrumbs, like here and there, and kind of like work it into conversations. Um, and just start somewhere, because it's going to feel weird. It's going to feel strange. It's going to feel new, and you might feel a little bit of anxiety doing it. But that's kind of the point, right? Is to work through that anxiety. Um, growth growth feels good, when you're there and when you're going through it. But a, a there is an amount of anxiety or not knowing or whatever it could be that is kind of the point of it. Like, you're supposed to work through it and kind of like be forged into this, like you're a block of marble and then you're like forged into like a really cool sculpture, right? It's going to take time, it's going to take work, and it's not going to be easy always, but it's going to be incredibly worth it by the time you're done with it. And as we're going through it, we don't want to be incredibly hard on ourselves. We want to give ourselves a lot of grace throughout this process, because like I said earlier, like, we are our own best advocates. If we're tearing, like, the whole world around us might have a million and one opinions about us, we can disregard all of that. But if we start like attacking ourselves, like, it's futile, right? And there's no point to it, because it's going to take time and it might not happen as fast as you want it to, but that's okay, because it's not instantaneous. And starting where you're at right now is like half the problem is over, right? You made the decision to make a change, and that's hard part's over, right? Because it's more than enough. And have multiple conversations if it's not being taken seriously at first, because unfortunately sometimes people need to be reminded what you're okay with a few times. And I feel like if people hear it enough, they'll be like, okay, maybe I won't mention this. Or if they continue to talk about it, it's completely okay to not, engage in like engage deeper like that. Maybe it's just like, oh, a friend always talks about this. They know that's like a very triggering thing for me, maybe rethink, some things, um, but not everyone's the same. Sometimes if you say it the first time, they'll be like, okay, and then they'll never mention it again, right? But sometimes some people will have to be reminded. So I've been saying this the entire time, but the importance of boundary setting, self-advocacy, all of it, self-determination, is choosing your own self-esteem and self-respect over the fear of what might happen if you do say this, right? It's about being brave enough to really know, like, what matters in your life, what matters to me, what matters to us, and having the self-respect and self-esteem and self-confidence to act in an alignment with what I have set up, right? Even when it's uncomfortable, especially when it's uncomfortable, because we don't want to cave to something because it's what someone else wants, right? We want to live fully to ourselves, to our own sort of set of guidelines, set of boundaries, set of whatever you want to call it. Because if not, we're not being true to ourselves. We're not being our best self. And I just want to stress this. Um, Setting boundaries is not about creating distance. It's more about um, fostering this real connection that you can have with other people, with yourself. And when you kind of take into account your own needs that are going on, you're not just respecting yourself. You're also you're laying the foundation, you're laying the groundwork for, all these deeper connections that you're going to have, all of these authentic people and connections that you'll meet and have. And like I said earlier about self-care, um, it's incredibly crucial. Um, so firstly, you just want to assess your needs. So what can I do for myself that calms me, that de-stresses me, um, that I know if I continue to do this in this fashion, it will definitely lead to burnout and self-isolation and all of those great things. So do what works for you. Everyone is different. Self-care looks different to everybody. Is it going on a walk? Is it playing with your dog? Is it, doing a self-care routine in the morning or at night? Or, it could be anything like that. And if you're new to self-care, start small, because massive change doesn't happen overnight. You want to give yourself space and time and the grace to really know how you're feeling and really evaluate yourself. And lastly, it's good to track your progress. So for me, I journal, so that helps. But if you want a more like, if you want a different thing, if you want to put it in your Google Calendar or in your Notes app on your phone, whatever works for you. But it's good to see how far, and like in this very kind of black and white, on paper, like, oh, I was feeling like this, and now I'm feeling like this, and now I'm feeling like this. It's good to track your progress, right? And it's not just for school and work. It's for, oh, geez, sorry. But it's for every aspect of our lives. It's for relationships. It's for driving. I don't know about that, but it's for a lot of different things, right? Because we need to be our own best advocates and our own supporters and our own cheerleaders and our own everything, right? So I leave you with this. The only people who get upset about you setting boundaries are the ones who are benefiting from you not having any, having none. I feel like it's very applicable to this. So thank you guys. Do you guys have any questions, any comments, any concerns? I'd love to answer them. But thank you guys for joining, to everyone.
Yeah, think of what I mean, Dan.
Thank you. Yeah, I can send you the presentation file. Of course. Oh, Roma, you had a question?
No, no question. I'm just going to thank you for this uh, session about this topic in
Of
this
course.
moment of my life during college, because it's so like helpful as we go forward. It's like the beginning of school, like 7 weeks left, but whatever that looks like for everybody else, it varies. But it's very vital to know stuff like this for sure and feel it in the moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
Have a good rest of the day.
All right. See you later. Thank you for coming.
You're welcome.
I'm going to stop recording.